If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get this show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 283 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Welcome back for what's sure to be the most indecent episode of all time. My guest today is Kiki Andersen, host of Indecent with Kiki Andersen. You're going to love my conversation with Kiki, and that's coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, Glenn Tickle was here this week as well. It's Comedian Week. Don't miss that amazing conversation, but don't first miss the amazing journey of Kiki Andersen from Baltimore journalist to LA comic to host of Indecent with Kiki Andersen. All the stories are about to roll out right now. Oh, and she's won 2 Emmys. That's pretty cool, right? Kiki Andersen. Enjoy. All right, everyone. Excited to introduce my next guest, 2-time Emmy Award winner, host of the podcast Indecent, funny as hell comedian. Welcome to the show, the dazzling Kiki Andersen. How are you?
Hello, Jeff. I am groovy. How are you?
I'm good. That's how your publicist emailed. She said she's funny as hell and would be dazzling on your show.
Dazzling. I like that. Put it on my gravestone.
Well, it's very nice to meet you. Interesting backstory you have. I know you're a comedian and podcaster now and doing all the funny stuff, but interesting background.
Yeah.
As a reporter in Baltimore. Let's start there. ASU, Walter Cronkite. Why can't
we called it Cronkite because we were drunk. So
Walter Cronkite School of Broadcasting. All right. So your first dream was to be a journalist?
Well, my first dream actually was to do late night. I loved Jon Stewart. I loved The Daily Show, but I didn't grow up in a place where comedy was a thing, really. I mean, I grew up outside of DC, but I didn't know anybody that did comedy. My parents weren't in that world. So I had never even heard of like improv. I just knew that I liked it. And my dad was a journalist, and then I was pretty good on the school paper or whatever the bar is for that. Really reporting on those sports. So I thought, I'll go do the news route and eventually somehow I'll find comedy. And that is really what happened. I studied journalism. I was pretty good in school, became a local news reporter because that's what you do when you graduate journalism school. And then finally, when I moved back to the East Coast, I found stand-up and I loved stand-up. But I was doing stand-up till 2 a.m. and then going to work at 5 a.m. And that's just not a way to live. And you can't report on the mayor and talk shit about the mayor. So at some point, there was a fork in the road and I had to decide what I was going to do. So here I am, broke in LA and happy.
Oh, living the dream. Were you always funny? Let's start there. Like, were you the funny person in school, making your friends laugh? While you went on the path to journalism, was there always something, even not knowing, were you still funny? Were you the funny one in the group?
Yeah, I think that really depends on who you ask, but I'm not the big jokester. Like, I don't like being the center of attention, actually, which I think surprises people because I'm on stage. But I like embarrassment I can control. Like, when you get on stage, you have your script, your jokes that you wrote. I don't like to drag attention to myself. I've never been the loud person. I've never been the prankster. So I think there was a lot of people that were probably surprised by that choice. But then I think there's other people that maybe had read my writing or knew me when I was little. And, I was always trying, even before I really knew what comedy was, I was always trying to formulate jokes, like, especially according to my parents. They were like, yeah, you were always, it was like you had this vague understanding of what a punchline should be. And I'm like, I know, I still don't. And I'm 31. So.
I totally understand. I'm the same way. Like, my brother, he would joke, he'd say, you know who I want to be friends with? On stage, Jeff. That's who I want. Because off stage, it's, the same way. I totally understand.
Yeah. Every comedian is so cool on stage. And then you meet them and they're all dorks.
I will not take that personally.
Hey, I'm included.
So when you're doing the reporting, when you're winning all your Emmys, what kind of led you to try stand-up? Like, kind of dip your toe into that? How'd you go down that path?
Well, I actually found improv first, and a lot of people hate on improv, especially stand-up comics. I think it's the best way to start comedy. You just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks and see what you're good at, what gets a laugh, and you just you learn game, you learn how to heighten things, you learn the basics of comedy, and you make friends. It's so much fun. And then after that, I got into sketch comedy, more of a writing twist on it. But then eventually I kind of just wanted to work on stuff by myself. I wanted to find my own funny and rely on myself on stage. So I got into stand up and, I still do some sketch stuff here and there, but stand up, I don't have to rely on other people, which is great. So I really love it. I haven't looked back since.
The first time you went up, either for improv or stand up, what kind of prompted you to even just get on stage? Because I remember when it was something in the back of my head for the longest time. It was hard. I had to take a class, like a writing class at one of the comedy venues. And then they did 7 minutes, was sort of graduation. And then from there, it was off to the races. But that first time on stage isn't easiest for everyone. So, I think there's a lot to your story, like you studied comedy, you took a lot of classes, you went through that. Where was the first place you stood on stage?
First place I stood on stage. Well, I guess my first improv class was in the basement of a synagogue. They eventually got their own theater, which was very nice. But it was Baltimore. That's the great thing about the Baltimore comedy scene is it's very DIY. There wasn't really a scene when I started, but we created one. And then there was a demand for it. People were buying tickets and people were joining the classes. So the little synagogue became a theater. And then, the one bar show became 10 bar shows. And the scene has really exploded since then. The first time I did stand up was in the upstairs of a bar where I also did improv. And I think there was 6 people there. And I wouldn't say that everyone talks about their first stand up time as totally bombing. I didn't totally bomb. I had plenty of bombs after that. Don't worry. But the first time was actually a pretty pleasant experience. I felt like I had a pretty strong idea. And because I was already doing local news, I was already on TV, so I had the confidence for it. So I don't know. It wasn't traumatizing, at least not the first time. Several times after that, yeah, lots of traumatizing bombs.
Yeah, my first 2 times on stage were brilliant. My third time was the one where I went down in flames so hard. My wife even said to me, if I were you, I'd probably be crying right now.
Oh, there's been a lot of crying. I'm sure you're crying in your car, maybe calling your mom a little bit.
Okay, so the synagogue, funny Jews, a little cliche, but okay, we'll go with it. I hear you. All right, well, before we make the jump, so Emmys, winning Emmys. You just need Grammys, Oscars, and Tonys, so you're on your way. You're ahead of most comedians in this. You got 2 for the EGOT so far. What was it like winning Emmys? That's got to be a thrill. Where do you keep them? You got them out? Show them?
I have them hidden behind my TV because it's I don't want to bury them in the closet, but I also don't want them to be out there. It feels icky. I don't know really what I used to have jewelry because they're spiky. So I used to have rings on them. I'm trying to make them more of a decorative art piece than ostentatious. Look at what I've won piece, I don't know. Emmys in news are a weird thing because it's oh, look at this horrifying, traumatic thing I reported on and am now being celebrated for. The first one I got was for a mass shooting, and then the second one was for police corruption. So cheerful subjects, but it is nice to see your hard work pay off, I guess.
Okay, but they probably trigger some interesting memories there. Since the reporting wasn't tied to the most positive events in the world, but it's still awesome. It's really cool. You have 2 more Emmys than I do. So I'm very jealous.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. The thing about news is you're reporting on bad shit all the time. Every day is bad shit most of the time. So you become numb to it. I'm sure it's being like a doctor, but much lower pay grade. It's yeah, everyone that's coming in has cancer. Everyone is not well. So I wouldn't say that you're harping on the subjects necessarily that you're reporting on. It is a job and you have to show up for it. And you do have to give up a lot to be a news reporter, your weekends, your holidays, your sanity, your potential to be a millionaire ever. So yeah, it is nice to have something to show for everything you put in.
Is it hard then? It sounds like it's the day-to-day would be difficult. And was it extra difficult for you as a kind of emerging comedian and someone who could see the funny in things to, oh my God, we got another mass casualty. And why is Kiki cracking a smile? Oh, no. I was thinking of something else. I was what if that mass casualty was? a clown car.
Yeah, you're probably focusing on like the police commissioner's like goofy hairdo. And, like, yeah, you're like roasting the person that's at the podium, but like it's not about the shooting. It's like, look how ridiculous this guy is. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone in news takes themselves so seriously. First, it's the unfunniest industry out there. I think everybody in news like kind of thinks they're a hero, and you're like, you know what? Nobody watches fucking local news. Like nobody cares. Nobody cares that you missed your live shot. Nobody cares. Like that's the thing. Nobody cares. That's the headline here. And then you get like a slew of angry emails from the community the one time they tuned into local news throughout the last 10 years of their life. You know, it's like, well, you didn't cover this. And it's like, actually, I covered that last week. But thanks. I'll let Tucker Carlson know your opinions about his new whatever. You know, like everybody thinks that you're right next to the president, but also that you're a nobody piece of shit that they can talk to poorly. So... Yeah.
Well, were you like a local celebrity though?
There is a niche that watches local news and they're pretty diehard and they love their anchors and their weathercaster. But I never, you know, I wasn't one of those like lifers that like has been on the news for 30 years. Those people are usually the big staples.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're there though, you're starting, wait, I wrote it down. You started shows. So you're kind of making the transition from reporter to comedian. You're starting, improv kikioki?
Is that a show that I need to do? I think it is.
Oh, no, lip sync kikioki. Sorry, that's what I get for doing it. But improv kikioki would have been good too. When improv met stand-up, so you start creating and adding to the scene yourself, extending beyond the synagogue's basement, creating your own shows?
Yeah, I think the first few years of comedy are so fun in that like, it's you just trying to do the dumbest things possible with your friends on stage. And so we were always trying to come up with new show ideas to make that possible. So one of the shows that I created was honestly a ripoff of Lip Sync Battle, but it was all characters. So, you know, you had like your pill addicted salesman and you had your horny priest. Like we had all these crazy characters doing crazy lip syncs and competing for the cup. But the point was to just be a funny character or be a funny panelist or whoever. And then what was the other one?
When improv met stand-up.
Oh, yeah. That was a way to just get people's wheels turning. So we would have 4 stand-ups and then the improvisers would do improv based off of the jokes that the stand-ups had just told.
Now that you've done both improv and stand-up, which do you prefer? Do you prefer stand-up? I mean, that's where you landed. Because like to me, I never did improv. And it always scared me to do improv. But stand-up I've done. And a lot of people who are in improv I talk to are like, oh, I could never do stand-up. To me, which is mind-boggling. It's like you'd rather go up there with nothing than knowing what you're going to say. And they're like, it was just, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a whole different, interesting point of view, the different mindsets of improv folks versus stand-up comedians.
Yeah, I think there's very few people that thrive in both settings. But I do think that to be a good stand-up, you have to have some improv skills, right? Everybody's posting these crowd work clips now. You got to be a good listener. You have to have like a clear point of view, and establishing that clear point of view before you take any stage is important, whether it's improv or stand up. I don't think I could ever go back to improv in the sense that like I was really my best at improv with a very select group of people. I had this improv troupe called Banana Phone, and we were all stand-ups. So we all kind of had the same fucked up sense of humor, and it was just magic on stage. We were all on the same page with every joke. We could finish each other's sentences, and I've never been able to find that since then. You know, you join these like comedy, like UCB or Growlings, whatever, and you get stuck with like random people who are also taking the classes, and that's just, you're not going to find your people that way. Although I think those classes are great in their own right. Like, I've never been able to find that first improv love ever again. So I'm probably done with improv.
How did you make the decision to leave Baltimore? Oh, wait, there was a Kellyanne Conway story, right? Yeah, right? Everyone thought you were her and all that kind of good stuff on Twitter. I got to hear about that. That must have been amazing.
Yeah, well, talk about like news people not finding it funny at all. So my legal name is Kiki Andersen, and then there's Kellyanne Conway. So for a very long time, when people would try to send hate tweets to Kellyanne, her Twitter handle was Kellyanne Polls. My Twitter handle, Kelly A Media, would auto-populate, and people wouldn't think to like edit it and fix it. So I would just get all of her hate tweets. And I thought it was hilarious. I like, that's great. You know, it's harmless, but also great because you get kind of feel like the ire that politicians get, rightfully so in her case. But other newscasters like really didn't think that was funny. They were like, this is damaging your brand and your credibility. I'm like, who gives a shit? This is hilarious. This is the joy of my day, reading my tweet mentions.
And Kellyanne is like, oh, people aren't really that upset with me these days. She's like,
yeah,
living
right?
it up. She's like, I guess they want more. I guess they want more.
Yeah, oh no, I made sure after a while to like quote tweet them and be like, wrong Kelly, dude, and then at her. So make sure she sees them.
Did she ever respond to you?
She never responded, but I do think that Twitter caught on 'cause at some point the tweets stopped coming. So I think something flagged them that something was amiss.
That's really funny. Sorry to interrupt. Had to take a quick break. I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my conversation with Kiki Andersen. We're heading from Baltimore to LA, and we're back. Do you have any like specific highlights before we move into comedy and leave Baltimore? Like, I know you were a red carpet interviewer. You interviewed like a million really cool celebrities. Like, because I saw you had clips like Kate Blanchett, Brad Pitt. We got Ed Harris, Weird Al, Steve Carell, Oprah.
Okay, I'm really impressed. You really did your homework. Yeah, well, that was kind of funny because before I took my first job in local news, I was actually in LA just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I found this job on Craigslist of all places that was like seeking like entertainment reporter or something. Like it was very weird. I was like, this isn't even a real job. Like there was no information about the job. So I was like, this feels like a scam. And so it ended up being for LA Film Fest, which I think is now defunct. But they hired me to basically be like their in-house red carpet reporter, which at the time, like I hadn't interviewed anybody. Like I had done a few school projects, you know, but like I was a brand new college graduate, had no freaking clue what I was doing. And my first interviews were with the biggest stars in the world. Yeah, it was dope. That was so cool. The coolest job possible. Especially because like later on they put me on the Spirit Awards, so I would get to interview them like right after they got off stage and won their award, which how many people in the world get to say you get to see like Brad Pitt wiping the sweat off his face after like winning an award, you know? He's a little drunk too, so that was fun.
What did you talk to Brad Pitt about? How much time you got with these folks? Like minutes?
It depends. I mean, when they were on the red carpet, sometimes we'd get a few minutes with them, but right after they won their awards, it was like 30 seconds in and out. So you just had to be quick and you had to make sure you asked an interesting question right away because, you know, you didn't want a boring sound, but like, thank you, Film Independent, you know, no, yeah, I won this award and I'm going to celebrate with fucking cocaine or whatever. No, they never said that, but you know, that's the soundbite you're looking for.
That's funny. Was there any of them that were not so great to interact with in that time frame? They're like, get me out of here.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna put that out there.
All right.
I don't want to come back and bite me in the butt.
All right, I'll assume it's Moby. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. That was random. Okay, so all right, so you're in LA. What finally made you leave Baltimore though? When you finally decided, all right, journalism isn't for me. I'm gonna pack it up, move to LA, and follow my dream to be a comedian.
Well, I think I made the leap because I had a really influential conversation with a friend that I was like, I don't know what to do because, you know, I've worked so hard to get to this point in my journalism career, but it's really not what I love, but it's safe. You know, I know where my next paycheck's coming from. I've done pretty well in it, but I'm always worried that I'm going to lose my job. Like I show up half asleep every day. Someday somebody's going to find my stand-up and I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get canceled. And he's like, well, it sounds like you can't stop doing comedy. So maybe you should give it like a real try. Like if it's the thing you can't stop doing, then maybe it's what you're supposed to be doing. And I don't know if it's what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't really believe in like callings, but it's the thing that I love doing. And I'm broke, but I'm happy. I mean, I hope someday I'm not broke, but can't imagine having to wake up Monday morning and go do local news anymore. Like, I'm so glad I put that life behind me. So when I finally made that choice, I actually wanted to move to New York, but a series of family events happened in my life and most of my family ended up in LA. So I ended up here, which has been great.
And this is where you became roast battle champion. You got you got
Oh yeah, I didn't mean to wear this. That was totally.
You got the swag. You're wearing the shirt. So I watched it. You took down Sarah Fatemi.
Yeah. Oh, actually, she beat my ass,
Oh,
but
did she
she's
beat
really
you?
good.
Okay. Well, you both did great. I watched it. There was a clip on YouTube. Those were fun. Is that the only time you did the roast battle, or is that the only one I was able to find on YouTube?
No, I do it pretty
Oh,
frequently.
you do it. Okay.
But she's the current roast battle champ. She's got the belt, so it was an honor to lose to her.
What is that genre or path with the roast battle? That's not stand up. That's just insults back and forth. How do you prepare for one of those? Like when you're doing that, is it like if I don't know Sarah or I don't know you, you know what I mean? Like, how do you prepare for that to make it, I guess, accessible enough to the audience that may not have known Sarah or may not know Kiki if it's Sarah's jokes? And still kind of engage and like how personal can you get? And like it's a comedian's dream to be able to just break balls like that right in front of everyone. But like when you're doing that and it's for a show and a contest, like what's the tricks of the trade there?
Well, I think everyone who does roast battle has a different perspective on it and like where the limit is and where the line is and how they prepare. For me personally, it's an arena. People don't and shouldn't talk like that in real life. You are going to be entertained the same way you would go be entertained like in a wrestling match. And I think it just levels the playing field. You know, everyone's fair game. It's the great equalizer. You know, none of us are here to get our feelings hurt. You know, you're going to make fun of me for being Jewish. I'm going to make fun of you for being Muslim. But I think for me, there is a way to be racial without being racist. And where that line is varies sometimes. But I do think there's a difference. And so anyway, first I'll just look up what's available about them on the internet, on their Instagram, what battles they've already done, what's already been said about them, what they talk about in their stand-up. And then like today, for example, I'm going to have lunch with somebody that I'm battling in a week or two. And we're just going to exchange information. And that's how you know that it's safe, right? Because I'm giving you this information about myself so that you can make fun of me for it. Or I'm telling you what's off limits. Please don't talk about that on stage. But yeah, the key is to find the things that are obvious about people, like you wear glasses and a hat, and find a way to write that joke, but then also find the thing people don't know about you and make it quick, punchy, and palatable enough to make it into a good joke.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, I find those hilarious to watch. Like like even just like when they do the roast, celebrity roast and stuff like that. But the roast battles are awesome. All right, well, thanks for taking me through that. And then photographer, I found your Camera Kiki Instagram.
When I went to journalism school, actually, I guess it goes back to the school paper. When I was in high school, I got on the school paper because my photography teacher recommended me. So I started out as a photographer. And then when I went to journalism school, you kind of learn about cameras, mostly video cameras, but you know, it all lives in the same world. And then when I moved out here, it just became a way to make money. But I had gotten this great job photographing live comedy shows with the biggest comedians in the world, and that helped me get on stage with them. And so for a while, that was just my way in. But getting that stage time, it doesn't matter who you were on the lineup with. It was the fact that I was getting real stage time in a really good venue with a full audience that really helped me cut my teeth. It all worked out in the end. It all came full circle.
How did you break into the LA comedy scene? Like, what's the process there? Like, did you have to find clubs to audition for? Which clubs do you work? Talk me through that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to break into the scene. Yeah, I'm 6 years in and I'm not past at all the clubs yet, which is ultimately the dream. But, you know, a lot of it is just building your own connections with indie producers at first that give you stage time to work and grow and learn. And I've been really lucky that I have people that book me pretty consistently. But when I first moved here, I couldn't get booked anywhere. Like, people didn't care that I'd been doing stand-up for X amount of time. They didn't care if I had a good joke at the open mic. It's like, who are you? You're new. Wait in line. And I did. I waited in line, and then I built my own connections. I started my own show for a while. And then, you know, once I got to a place where I felt decent enough, I did start auditioning at the clubs, and I did get passed at the Laugh Factory. So the Laugh Factory was the first club to give me the green light and say, you're good enough to be on our stage, and we'll pay you for it. Now I'm just working on the other 2 clubs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is the Supernova comedy team? So
Supernova was that indie show that I was working for. They still run. I don't work for them anymore, but you know, they were kind of born out of the pandemic because they had this great venue that was indoor, outdoor, like it didn't have a roof, and it had this circular stage, and people could sit around it and not worry about getting COVID. Everybody from Bill Burr to Nick Kroll to Whitney Cummings to Nikki Glaser was performing on that stage. And so at first I just offered my services as a photographer. I just wanted to be around it and just watch my favorite comedians work. which was invaluable in itself. That's the cool thing about LA is you get to watch your favorite comic bomb and gracefully, right? You learn how to bomb, you learn how to work, you learn how to change a joke from set to set. And then eventually I started getting stage time there and making connections that way. Yeah, I mean, besides meeting my favorites, the best part was just getting to cut my teeth, really. Like there's no replacement for that.
How did the podcast come about? Indecent with Kiki Andersen?
Yeah, so I was approached by Next Chapter Podcast, who is a brilliant DC-based team of also comedians. They're all kind of in that world. And they had approached me about a different podcast originally that they went in a different direction with, which was totally fine, but they had a certain vision and I didn't quite fit into it. But we really wanted to work together. So we started throwing around other ideas. And eventually, we originally had thrown around this idea called porn and politics. We wanted to talk about like political scandals and like dirty politicians. But although I'm sure there's tons and tons and tons of stuff, sometimes it gets too in the ickiness and it's hard to make it funny sometimes. So we were like, okay, this might not be the kind of podcast we can keep going forever. So we landed on Indecent, just anything taboo, anything that gives anybody any kind of ick. Like, why is it icky? Is this something to hold on to? Is there something to abandon? Follow the money. Like, who's profiting off of the rage here? And it's been really fun. We've talked about everything from porn to politics, sex, religion, tech, the future dystopia. Really, it's a big umbrella and it's going to go all kinds of crazy directions.
Yeah, I mean, you go deep. I listened to a couple episodes. Which is your favorite one? Like if listeners should dive into one just to kind of get a feel for Kiki and like which one is one of your favorites so far? I listened to the one with Dr. Lori Betito.
Lori's such a great guest, isn't she?
Yeah, she was really cool.
Yeah, Lori she's a contractor for Pornhub's Wellness Center, which I didn't even know existed. But that episode was actually born from us just wanting to talk to Pornhub. But Pornhub, as you may know, doesn't do interviews. They are a very embattled company. Sometimes rightfully so, sometimes not rightfully so. But she's a contractor, so she could talk to us, just not on behalf of Pornhub. And so we talked to her a little bit about internet porn and like porn consumption habits and like masturbation. And she's just like your crazy auntie, but like super full of knowledge about romance and the internet, and she's just so much fun. So that's definitely one of the episodes I recommend. And then like Levon Briggs, she goes by Preacher Bay. She's like I forget what the term is, theologist?
Sure.
But she's also a podcaster and very sex positive. She's so funny. Samantha Cole, she's a Vice News reporter, and her beat is the internet and sex. So she talks a lot about like where porn came from and like where it's going with the future of AI and all that, which is super scary and interesting. So those first few episodes, they're just so wide ranging, but so fun.
Yeah. I mean, you go there. So it's good. You're a really good host.
Thank you.
Who's like some of your wish list guests that you hope to get on the show one day?
We've reached out to some bigger names. We're not a big enough podcast yet to get them, I think, but we had originally tried to get Anthony Weiner. He turned us down, but fingers crossed. There's always hope. As you know, Anthony Weiner is an embattled politician whose last name is Weiner, which is also how he signs his emails. Fun fact. He could sign them Anthony, but he signs them Weiner.
The only advice I would give you, don't ever think like you're too small, because reach out, because you never know what's going on with these folks. Some of the yeses I got early on, when I would reach out, I'd be like, holy crap, I can't believe they said yes. Now I got to prepare to talk to these people. Yeah, so don't ever think like, oh, we only have 6 episodes. It's like you have a great show. It's quality. You have a point of view. People will want to be on it. And by the time they get back to you, you'll be twice the size.
I appreciate that.
Don't hold back. What's next on your docket? You got shows. You're doing more podcasting. How much of that does that take up most of your time these days?
Yeah, we're building something, and at first we didn't know exactly what it was going to be, and we're still, we kind of operate in chunks. So the first 4 episodes are about sex and porn. The next 4 episodes are about like media and like political messaging, and then stay tuned for the next 4 episodes. But we're always figuring it out as we go along, and it's a team effort, but it does take a lot of work. So building that has been most of my life for the last few months, but podcasting is the only thing I do. So right now I'm just building my new stand-up material and trying to get a new half hour by the end of the year. Just really trying to work on that online content, Jeff. That's how you make the money these days.
It's hard. There's so many, and then You know, one minute there's threads and then next minute no one cares about threads. It's like,
Oh God, I know. Is that even, are people on it? I don't know. I looked at it and I was like, oh, like NBC News tweeted and like Arby's.
I think the problem was they went to Instagram people. They must have gone to Instagram people to talk about it. And they should have gone to Twitter people to figure it out. I have a pretty big Twitter account, but I don't have a big Instagram account. But on Threads, it was 1-to-1 with how big you were on Instagram. So when they converted over, I got a percentage of those people. So if I only had 800, I've got 200. And the people that were big on Instagram have, 100,000, have 80,000 on Threads. But the way they're good on social isn't Twitter.
Yeah, we kind of talk about this on our last episode of Indecent, how like we had this great guest, Bridget, and we were just talking about how Threads feels too sanitized. Like it's too, like she said, brand safe. There's nothing going on there. It's not interesting. And for me, it feels like the first open mic you go to after the new year, where it's like, well, who are you people? Like, you were on Twitter. You don't know how to tweet. You're not funny, like, online. Leave me alone. Like, just because you have an Instagram doesn't make you a good tweeter, you know?
I think everyone was so kind of drained from X, Twitter, all that, that it just was so refreshing for like a hot second. And then, like you said, there was no trends. There was no way to go viral. There was no way to be seen. So it was like lost its luster pretty quick.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if everybody feels this way, but I'm kind of different on every platform. Like on Twitter, I'm a little meaner. I talk a lot more shit, On Instagram, like my friends' parents follow me. I'm a lot more careful about what I post, which is definitely not true of Twitter. So Threads is like having a party at your house that everyone's invited to, and you don't really necessarily want everyone there.
Well framed. What's the process that you're going through to build this new 30 minutes? Is the goal to, what do they say, create an album these days? What is it called when it's just all digital? I guess an album. We can still call it an album, right?
Sure, yeah.
So is that the goal, to kind of put that together? Are you hobnobbing? Do you get to take advantage of being around all these famous established comedians? Is the hope also, oh, maybe I'll tour with some of them, that kind of thing? Because that could probably be a good way to get noticed. Lots of go on the road, get lots of experience that way.
Certainly there's value in networking. But I think what I've taken away from my time in LA, I've been here almost 5 years, is that at the end of the day, the most important thing you can do is be your own creator and have people want to work with you because of what you've done, rather than you trying to suck up to the power T and get people to just like you, because that goes far to a certain point. You want fans. You want people to buy tickets because they like you and what you have to say and your point of view. So for me, this new 30 minutes is trying to take it to the next level for me, try to talk about harder subjects, try to be a little more like news and politically savvy, because I think that's what people expect when they come to me, just because I used to be a news reporter. And I used to shy away from that because I was like, well, I don't know if I have the sharpest news take, like I'm a comedian. I'm not a news reporter anymore. But the truth is, it is what I talk about on my podcast. It is what I talk about in my day to day. And so I am trying to lean into that a little bit more. I don't know about putting out albums anymore. I think, like Andrew Schultz said it best, every 30-second clip you put out there is a new way for people to find you and discover you. So I'm less worried about putting out one full set as opposed to just making sure I have 30 new 1-minute clips, in the next year or next 6 months.
That is true. You're right. And and then the burden is finding the right software to put coolest types of captions on it.
Right. Keep people's attention.
Right. Oh, yeah. Where can people keep up with you on the socials?
I'm on all the things, including Threads. It's Kiki Andersen. Andersen with an E, not an O. I'm Danish.
Danish, Jewish, Latina, everything. You're everything, right?
I fit in everywhere and nowhere. It's very devastating.
All right. So everyone check out the podcast, Indecent, with Kiki Andersen. Check out her YouTube. I'll put links to everything in the show notes so people can find all the Kiki they want in their life they can find.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. This has been so fun.
I will not put a link to the Wix resume of yours that I also found online.
I hate how high up that goes on my Google search.
But thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, Jeff. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was the amazingly hilarious and dazzling Kiki Andersen. Definitely check out Indecent with Kiki Andersen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. A wonderful podcast indeed. Kiki is a fabulous host, amazing comedian. All the links are in the show notes. Well, can't believe it either. Interview's over. That can only mean one thing. I know. Episode 283 has come to a close. I do want to thank one more time my special guest, Kiki Andersen. And of course, I want to thank all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.